Okay, we are going to begin the Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, October 23rd. I just want to remind everybody that your cell phones need to be silenced or turned off. Any conversation you'd like to have needs to be brought out into the hallway. If you need to address the commission, please come up and sit in these chairs and speak directly into the microphones so that you're picked up on the audio video. And with that, we'll begin the public meeting, public comment on items that are not being heard this evening.
I have a question about...
Can you just say your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Megan Perry. I got to take a look at the Sconset Bluff sediment analysis tracking, and I have a couple questions that I thought I would ask. I understand the sand analysis is to look at compatible size, but is there guidelines for looking at analysis for potential contamination? So visual contamination, like trash, large objects. I believe there was some photos from June 10th-ish that had large debris in it, so I would consider that to be contaminated sand. Chemical contamination. Do we know if there's PFAS in any of this? And if there's PFAS in it, are we then putting it directly into the ocean, potentially into a wonderful fishing ground that will potentially bioaccumulate, humans will eat? Does this create some type of health hazard for humans? Biological contamination. Fecal matter. Is any of the sand coming from septic areas, failed septic areas? So I'm just curious if that's something to take into consideration with the sand analysis, in addition to, is the sizing compatible? Is it muddy? Is it sandy? Is it whatnot? Because I think that is directly going into the ocean. It should be of concern. So I don't know if that's something you guys can answer, or maybe put this analysis on as an agenda item, because I think there's probably a lot of questions out there with the community, because this is kind of a hot topic at the moment. So I don't know if that's something the board could do. Maybe at the next meeting, and I don't know if this is the right avenue to be asking that question.
No, I think it's definitely an appropriate question. Absolutely. I think we just received the sand analysis yesterday as commissioners, so I think it is something for potential.
Sure. Yeah, so if it's something that's come up, if you guys want to discuss it and take any kind of action, we can post it for the next agenda as just a discussion item.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I think so too, because then we can get more input from the public as well with questions, and also data that people have or what have you. That'd be useful.
I had another question along with the sand analysis. There isn't an address with South Shore Road. Do we know where that sand came from? It just says South Shore Road.
I do, off the top of my head. I don't remember the exact number, but I'll definitely send that around to anyone.
18?
I don't believe so.
No. And then my next question is the Spearhead Road one. Isn't that property out by the airport? It used to be an old pit, and I'm slightly concerned about that one because I'm curious, and I don't know the direction of flow for this, but the foam that the airport uses for fire prevention and retardant is has a lot of PFAS in it, and that does concern me that we're putting that directly out there.
Yeah, that was just labeled as existing fill, but that was the only info that I could find.
Yeah, so, and there is a very large cellar hole currently on Spearhead Road. And I imagine that may or may not be where that sand came from. There's also a large stockpile of sand right on the corner on Tomahawk that looks fairly similar to the sand that was just put over the bluff. So again, I think it's another good thing to put on the agenda so that the public knows it's being looked at.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing up
Thank
those
you.
concerns.
Thanks. And I'm really concerned that we were told the sand was going to come from local pits or from off-island sources, but we were never told, oh, we're gonna just take it from basement holes, whatever this sand is coming from, random places. It sounds like.
Yeah, I know when I was looking at the different locations, it did make me a little concerned. I had some contaminated fill dumped in my shared driveway area that someone said, oh, it's coming from a clean site, and there was so much garbage in it. So I think we do need to be careful.
Sure. We'll talk about a related issue later in the meeting of a report on something, but if you guys certainly want to add that to the agenda, we'll get everything compiled and put forward and make sure that we get some level of word out that it's going to be discussed, and then also make sure that we invite those who have participated in that hearing process previously. So make sure like Land Council, Quinn and Squam, SPPF themselves, everyone is aware that we're going to be discussing it. So,
Yeah.
and then if we decide to take any action, we certainly can.
All right, that would be great for the next meeting, hopefully.
Yeah, it'll be November the 6th.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be good too. I don't remember anymore, but look back on the order of conditions and see what conditions we put on about the sand sourcing and size and all that kind of stuff. I think there's stuff buried in there somewhere, and so that would be good to look at.
Yeah, because I went out twice this week, and there was a pile there, but it was clean, and then there was some darker, I don't want to say loam, but darker sand down below. So, but what I saw was clean.
Okay.
I was concerned, so I don't know. So,
Yeah, so just kind of on a aside, color and soils can be a little deceptive depending upon where they come from and exposure and what's been moving through the soil. So typically in DEP's policies kind of typically relied upon grain size and angularity for compatibility purposes. I'm not aware of anyone that has started, and I appreciate that Megan brought it up because it's something that we have been talking about a lot lately with PFAS. Having required a level of analysis on some of those that is now possible.
Yeah.
So like for PFAS specifically, Massachusetts is still working on adopting a standard for PFAS and testing, and as far as I know, no one out here has started to do any real significant testing for PFAS, but it's pretty widely known at this point, especially with the amount of firefighting foam, that anywhere that's been used has a pretty much 100% chance of it occurring. And testing that's happened kind of nationwide is showing that PFAS is, I think, more available in soil than people originally thought. They're finding it all over the place. It's just in everything from non-stick cooking pans to fire retardant foams to it's a chemical that we unleashed at a very large scale. And it's not just one chemical, it's a whole family of chemicals. So
Awesome. Thank you for putting that on. Any other public comment?
Could I just add to that discussion briefly? I just want to let the public know that the local, I don't know about the fire department, but I believe the fire department and our fire, our prescribed fire team use foam on rare occasions, but we use what's called Class A foam, which is effectively dish soap. So if you're worried about your dish soap having PFAS, then and you're not worried about that, you don't have to worry about the prescribed fire. And I believe the in general for wildland fires, it's Class A foam, which is just soap, dish detergent, I guess. Thank you.
It's good to know. Thank you, Arnie.
Yeah, if I can chip in, my understanding was when we were detailing the conditions for SPPF, the understanding was specifically that it would mimic what was coming out of the bluff. And as Ernie said, the discussions focused on local pits, or in fact, I don't even remember off-island pits being discussed.
Yeah, I think that for the newer project they were discussing off-island, but these weren't off-island sources. They were a bunch of different local sources.
Right.
Yeah,
But they weren't from pits.
No.
The analysis was going to be that it was similar to what was coming out of the bluff, and there was absolutely it wasn't even inferred that it would be coming from building sites.
Yeah.
So I think to that, before we get too far, we'll compile all that and have a discussion
As an agenda.
as a posted agenda item.
Okay, so November 6th, we can talk about that one further.
It'll be posted for that,
Yeah.
so you can have a full-fledged discussion that's interactive and with actions at the end.
Yes.
So, Ernie, I hope you'll call in from.
Don't hold your breath.
Maybe he'll write a letter.
He'll be here in
I'll be here in spirit.
spirit.
Okay, so
I'll keep your nameplate, Ernie. You can just set it on the table there.
He'll be back.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to add to, on Burton Balkine, I'd like to add to Megan's suggestion that maybe we also do some testing of the soil that's at the site, not just from where it came from, because we don't have a chain of custody that really is complete. So I would suggest maybe that would be part of the discussion. Also, pertaining to the SBPF, we had 2 action items that Jeff sent to town council. You mentioned last time, one was a sand that was pushed up from the beach onto the geotubes, and I think the other one was a quarterly reports. I just wonder if you had any more information on those.
All right, so I was going to save this for my report at the end.
Okay,
I'll just-
no, that's
no.
fine.
I'll just
I
do it
think-
now because there's more people here and you brought it up. So,
Okay.
as for the sand pushing up, and I know Mr. Feely came and discussed that with you guys. I think at that point, the commission didn't take any further action. As it relates to the quarterly reporting, however, we did receive, and just the other day received the 79th quarterly survey. And the issue with the 79th quarterly survey is the 78th quarterly survey was from data collected last December, and number 79 was from data collected this September. So our staff math was pretty clear that we had missed 2 quarterly surveys. So at instruction of council, and we'll put it up for everybody, we have sent a letter to Sconset Bluff specifically referencing the failure criteria of SE 48, 28, 24, that number's correct, for the reporting requirements, and then activating number 35 that requires them to appear before the commission to discuss that. So we've requested that they are present for November 6th to address that issue specifically.
Perfect. Thank you very
So,
much.
that'll be a kind of a probably part 1 to the discussion, and then part 2 will probably be the part that we just had as public comment. So that has been sent to them on your guys' behalf. So we'll get everyone copies later in the meeting when we go over it again. But that's effectively what's happened and kind of where we stand.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Madam.
thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing not, we'll move into the public hearing. The following items are continued. Mary D. Starr at 19 East Creek Road is continued until November 6th. Gregory Reyes at 19 East Creek Road is continued until November 6th. Chuck Rowe Nominee Trust at 25 Ways Road is continued until November 20th. And then in certificates of compliance, both Cambridges at 10 Medui Creek are continued until November 6th. So with that, we'll begin with Salon Elves LLC at 3 Wires A, Lot A and Lot B. Does that work?
Do you have those?
Okay.
It works great.
Are we sitting down now? to make this?
Yes.
It's easier to
Have a
get
seat.
close to the mics.
Do you have those full-size plans from Ben? Who is the set?
I don't. Did-
Okay.
did
I
he-
will.
Did he drop them off?
No, he sent them to us digitally, but I
He
will.
was gonna, I'm sorry.
Sorry, he just sent them to us.
I,
If you give me a second, I will.
I can,
You guys want me to put them up on the screen?
sure. I do have a, what I do have is, Jeff revised the site plan, the official site plan to reflect his changes, so I
Perfect.
do have that.
Yeah, why don't you use those
And we
instead?
can do that, and we can talk about, it'll give us the same information that the commission does need. I'm sorry, I missed the last hearing.
Do you want to swim, David?
Yeah, not in those waves. Since the last meeting, you asked for you brought up, Jeff Blackwell covered for it, and brought up several issues, and I've tried to address those issues, and we have modified the plan to address some of those issues. The issues that I were reported to me were you were concerned about the compliance with the 50% of the 25 to 50 foot setback, effective sea level rise due to climate change, why helical piers were not considered, or piers were not considered as an alternative foundation, and the effect of displaced groundwater on downstream surface waters. So if I could just quickly go through that. The plan has been modified, revised, shifting buildings on Lot B slightly and sliding the driveway over. And so we are now at a point where we do have 50% of the area between 25 and 50 to remain in a vegetated state and remain undisturbed. This building was shifted over, the driveway was able to be shifted over. There is also a grass strip that was suggested at a previous meeting that we have put in, and so 50% of the area between 25 and 50 is now going to remain in its natural state, and it meets your performance standards for that resource area. I hope that it took some work we made things slightly smaller, shifted them over. The effect of sea level rise due to climate change, it's an excellent question, and the island is it's aquifer, sand and gravel aquifer. It's major. The regional aquifer is a freshwater lens floating on top of the saltwater. So as the saltwater around the island raises, that lens will also come up. And so that is a concern, and it is something to think about. In this situation, this is a perched water table up on top of clay and silt layers, up on top of an aquitard. So it is not part of that regional water table that is floating. It flows down and it contributes to it as it gets into more permeable material. But since it is a perched situation, it is not floating, and it will not come up because of sea level rise. The water table on the site or in this area won't, because it's a perched aquifer, perched water table on top of a confining layer, and the regional aquifer is lower, and that will go up and down with sea level rise or sea level changes. It goes up and down with the tide. It's kind of fascinating. If you're a hydrogeologist, you like things like that.
It does go up and down with tide, huh?
Yeah, it's slightly. You can see it on, close to the shore mostly. Farther inland, it gets so buffered by the distance it is out, it doesn't really go up. But over a long term, if sea level rises, the whole lens will float. It's floating. For every foot above the sea level, the water table is, the freshwater lens goes down 40 feet. So you get a pretty good, because that's the shape of the lens. That 1 foot above is 40 feet below for freshwater. So another just bit of hydrogeologic information. We have this new plan, and the landscape plan does show it better. We have put some of the buildings, some of the structures, we have switched them over to helical piers. Basically, the garage and the mudroom on the house on Lot B, the garage on Lot A, the sunroom on Lot A, and the sunroom on Lot B are all now on helical piers, as opposed to before it had been all as a monoslab. The reason we'd like to keep the monoslab under the existing, basically lived-in parts of the buildings, is to have the mechanicals down there, so we can have a crawl space and get the mechanicals down there and put it. And if we have to redesign it the buildings are gonna have to get bigger to incorporate the mechanicals up in the footprint of the house. These buildings are actually, constitute something that's less than 20% of the allowed ground cover by planning board, which is an interest of the act, but just to demonstrate that it's not full build out of what it could be according to the.
Sorry, for clarification, 20% less than allowable. We're not just using 20% of the ground cover, we're using 80%.
Okay, excuse me, yeah, it's 20% less than what is allowable. Pardon.
Not to interrupt again, but in whole numbers, there's about 1,000 square feet of ground cover available that we're trying not to fill the lot with structure, or the lots.
And if we do have to put the mechanicals in the buildings, then we're gonna have to use a little bit more of the ground cover to take care of those mechanicals. So we have reduced the amount of monoslab and the amount of work that's going to be within 2 feet of the water table and slightly in the water table at high levels. And so we have reduced that, by 44% is what we've reduced that amount of foundation down at that grade. The question also came up of the effect of groundwater displaced by the foundations on the downstream surface waters. I did a calculation. Basically, I calculated how much foundation we would now have and how much groundwater that would displace. And the monoslab, we're going down to about 2,700 square feet of building on both lots. Would have the monoslab, and we're going to be into the water table at very high water levels, about 9 inches, and that comes out to be 405 cubic feet. When you figure out it's not just a straight volume of the foundation, you have to take into account the porosity of the soil. So it's about a 20% porosity. So only 20% of the volume of that foundation is got water in it. So it's about 405 cubic feet. The downstream wetland down here, this is a long wetland system, very, very big wetland system. And over on Grove Lane, there's a culvert that drains this wetland system, and it drains it over to the Nantucket ditch. But just looking at the wetland system on this side of Grove Lane, that this area would be directly tributary to, it's about 10 acres of wetland, and it includes no bottom pond and a few other things. And the increase in the water level based on 11 acres and 405 square feet is like a hundredth of an inch, a thousandth of a foot. A hundredth of an inch would be, and that's if all of that water were to seep out immediately into that area and spread across that area. There is still a lot of infiltration that's going on down through. I said it was a perched water table where it's perched, but there is still some leakage, so not all of it would go there. It is not going to go all out at once. It seeps through slowly and gradually released. So it's a hundredth of an inch over the whole thing if every drop of that water were to go in there right away. So I find it hard to see that that's really going to have much impact on anybody or anything else. And then that's a whole dynamic situation from that wetland that flows beneath Grove Lane and into Nantucket Ditch and discharges out off towards Hummock Pond. So that's basically what I have to offer. I'd like to answer any questions that you have or other concerns.
Any questions from the commission?
I'll just say I appreciate the efforts to improve the project in ways that we've asked.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, it's your last meeting. I was trying to be nice to you.
It's all for you.
Look at that.
Well, like brown-nosing Ernie in his last meeting is
No, it's not gonna be any
not
good
gonna
now.
help.
10 years ago, maybe. I did it 10 years ago, too.
I do want to just sort of piggyback what David said about the water table and just remind the commission what we discussed, I think it was 2 or 3 meetings ago at this point, was that the history of this issue in terms of the high groundwater or the 2-foot delineation of the groundwater, it was really based on dealing with predetermining which lots would need proper discharge water pumping conditions in place, not so much dealing with the displacement of water. That was not the purpose of why the rule was put into place in the first place. And I know I didn't say that technically right, but is that about right, David?
Yeah, it came out of a situation out on Squam Road where a permit had been issued for the construction of a building. And when they did it, they found that they had to dewater. And when they just went ahead and did it, and they pumped it into the road, and it flowed across the road, and sediment and everything went into the wetland across the street. And the commission was pretty upset about that, and rightly so. And so Peggy Fantazzi came up with the idea of the 2-foot separation so that the commission knows when people are going to be working close to the water table and what measures would be taken. And the major concern was the water quality of the water coming out during construction, and also any potential long-term impacts if there were permanent pumps or permanent drains around the foundation that would drain the water table and either increase the water in the wetland or decrease the water table in the wetland. And so it was that was my understanding. You were here when that was done, and that was basically why that was put in. And there was never really any concern about the displacement of the groundwater and its effect on water levels, but it was the removal, discharge of dirty water into the wetland and impacts to the wetlands from that, which I on my commission now always try to find out if we're going to have dewatering and have some sort of provision to treat that water properly. And the other is if somebody's going to put a pump down on there and continually pump, and that drops the water table, that can dry up a wetland. And that's what the concern originally was when it was issued. And I understand your concern about, we want to make sure things stay working the way they will do now, and I think they will in this situation, because we're going to do the work hopefully at a low water period when we don't even have to dewater. If we do have to dewater, we'll pump it into a silt sock out of the buffer zone and let it discharge over the lawn and monitor that flow, and there will be no permanent dewatering necessary. And the groundwater on the site, because of the material, I did a test pit. I did an auger hole down. There's a monitor well down here that's giving us our water level readings, and I found about 4 feet of permeable material, 4 to 5 feet of 4 feet of permeable material in that area. So the foundation, the bottom of the foundation, will not be in something that's will not be down in the clay, and so it won't act as a dam. The water can still flow around and underneath the foundation. But
Thank you for that clarification.
Can I just say something?
Yep.
I understand what the applicant's saying, but I do think it's important to read the regulations as they're written and read the waivers as they're written. And even if something was put in for one historical reason, there may be additional considerations in the future to read the regulations in other ways. Applications change over time, site conditions change over time, commissioners change over time. So it's good to hear the history, but
yeah,
that's where I'm coming from, at least.
Yeah, and Seth, I agree with that. But in this case, I think David's explanation of the 1/100th of an inch of water sort of addresses the displacement issue for the size of this building. But I can certainly see on a different project that involved a large commercial project or pumping, or a different situation where there would be a significantly different calculation to that.
and the waiver requirements that we've put in here are no reasonable alternative. which we've explained why we've done it the way we've done it, is to keep, and we've reduced it, and to keep the mechanicals in underneath the building and not make the buildings bigger, and also no adverse impact. And I think, you know, I've tried to demonstrate that we will have no adverse impact because there will be no lowering of the water table. That 1/100th of an inch over that entire area, I mean, I don't think you'll even be able to measure it when it happens, because there's so much, it's not going to flood out anybody.
You can get more from rain.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, that'll be during spring high rain periods, and you'll have a lot more water in the wetland and everything else, so. But I'm not saying you should allow it. If it were significant, I would say if it were significant, and we'd be talking about another scenario.
Ian, do you have any thoughts?
No.
Any questions or comments from the public? Okay.
Yeah.
It should work, yeah.
RJ Turcott, Nantucket Land Council. Do we know how far, I'll ask for the commission, how far this perched water table is above the regular tidally influenced water table?
I'd have to pull out the Worsley-Witten report. I don't have that information off the top of my head.
Do you have a guesstimate?
Can you talk into the mic, I guess, when you're replying? Can you talk into the mic?
According to my expert back here, Mr. Blackwell, he says the regional water table, which I would say, I was gonna say 6 feet, he thinks it's about 4 feet, and this site is up at 16.
So the regional water table is at 4 feet,
Yeah.
and this is perched at 16 feet
Yes.
under the lot? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Haynes. So the Land Council's original letter, as this was proposed before, was to move these structures as far uphill as possible on this lot. And the applicant has yet to propose moving them further over. I mean, the pools are there, but with this being tidally influenced and sea level rise, this is just going to become more and more of a problem as time moves forward. And if these structures are going to be long term, they should be as far away from this wetland and this water table as possible. I don't see why it's not a reasonable alternative to build the houses on that side of the lot and maybe move the pools around. And as far as the mitigation is concerned, if you could move those permanent structures over, you might avoid disturbing anything at all on that side of the wetland. This is already a very developed lot, and they're squeezing as much as they can into it, which is fine, but if they're going to, it should be done in an intelligent way and as environmentally friendly as possible on an already really, really stressed site. And that's the comments the Land Council has.
Thank you.
If I could just comment quickly, I mean, your regulations do require structures to be 50 feet back. We are 50 feet back. We have moved one of the house on Lot B, we have moved it about 6 or 8 feet farther back from that. And this is not a tidally influenced water table. And the planning board regulations would allow them to do 20% more building.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, it looks like the low elevation here is at 16, the high is at 18. Even if you possibly could move the structures up to that 18, would you then clear that 2-foot separation of groundwater, or no?
Probably not.
Okay.
I mean, no, because we are going to be putting fill in there to increase. The lot will be filled somewhat, 1 to 2 feet. We don't want to fill it too much because then we start having water flow onto the neighboring properties on the side and blocking it in the back. So we are bringing it up 1 to 2 feet to basically match that 18 feet and to increase our separation.
Thank you.
The water table is down at 14.9, and the elevation of the site is down at the bottom is about 16. So the seasonal high is at 14.9. The normal sort of water table in there is below 14.
And David, I think you said this, but 0% of this structure is in the 50.
Correct.
Right.
And now that we've got the driveway moved over, we're still maintaining 50% of the 25 to 50 foot zone.
I mean, I can see a little bit where RJ's coming from when we say the no reasonable alternative, because of course a pool or something is an amenity, you know, so to say that you can't slide the house further out of, you know, the 2 foot or further uphill.
We wouldn't be sliding it out though. Even at 18 feet with 4 feet, we'd be, which is where we're gonna be. We're gonna be up at 18 feet. And if it's level in there, we're still gonna be in the water table.
Yeah. I think what David is saying is we're already working from the 18.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts or questions from the commission?
Can I just also point out that we do have a plan for this Japanese knotweed and the eradication of that in that area as an overall benefit. That was what we came in originally thinking. Well, the net benefit far outweighs the little bit of 50.
Yeah.
But we backed off on that.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally appreciate the, you know, revegetation and trying to get rid of invasives, but we've had this problem before where this vegetation management might need to go on well into the future, well beyond the life of this permit, where structures are permanent. You know, so who's to say you won't stop the knotweed management in 3 years, and in 5 it's back. You know, these houses, the pools are permanent.
Right.
So.
I'm assuming that the grade, or the elevation, I should say, of the neighboring properties is at 18 or less.
It's actually right along this property. These are the proposed contours. It's 17.3, 17.8 right along the property line, 17.1. And so we've done sort of a swale here, so we don't direct water towards those properties. They are a little bit less. This one's a little bit higher. Well, this is about 16.5. We are trying to drain the water around so we do not impact any of the neighbors.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I appreciate what RJ is saying, but if you can't move it to get out of that groundwater separation anyway, I guess I would like to see you be able to get out of the groundwater separation, but if you can't do it here, then you can't do it there, then I don't.
What RJ's recommending is not gonna work.
Yeah, I don't really know.
It's already a lot that has been stripped and mowed, and they're going to the 50% rule. So I think they've walked a lot to get it to where we like this. So I personally like it.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? All right, from the public? Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
We have all the required information for both of those.
Okay. Would you like to close?
Yeah, I think we would.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're
yes.
prepared to close. I'd like to also thank Ernie, since I don't know if I'm going to get another chance, but thank you for your decade or more of service.
More.
More.
Almost
15 years.
Yeah,
15.
lots of time. We all thank Ernie.
We do.
All right, is there a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Is there a second? All right, we have to do voice vote. Ian?
Aye.
Arisman, aye.
LaFleur, aye.
Engelborg, aye.
Phillips, aye.
Steinauer, aye.
Top of line.
Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are moving on to Great State Properties at 92 Washington Extension. And it looks like, do we just need to accept a withdrawal? So do we need a motion for that then?
Yes.
Okay, is there a
Move to
motion?
accept the withdrawal.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, so we have to do a voice vote here. Ian, do you accept the withdrawal?
I do.
Okay, Arisman, yes.
LaFleur, yes.
Engelborg, yes.
Steinhauer, yes.
Topham, yes.
Okay, that withdrawal request passes unanimously. Moving on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 158 Orange Street.
Hi, my name is Rachel Freeman, and I'm here representing the Nantucket Land Bank for a request for a notice of intent at 158 Orange Street. This property is about 1.4 acres, and the land bank has owned it since 2009. It did have 2 houses on it, and those were removed. And we've been doing ongoing work on the property. We built a public dock because the original dock was shared with the adjacent homeowner. And we have been treating Phragmites in the small BVW in the middle of the site. At this point, we're proposing to do some landscape changes and to remove some hardscaping in an effort to reduce lawn area. And actually, we are adding a small amount of hardscaping to increase accessibility and just make the property a little bit more, have a little bit more curb appeal. So we are proposing, it's kind of a long property and there's a lot going on. So starting, I guess, at one end, which is termed Zone 1, we are proposing to remove the asphalt driveway in that area and install a brick parking spot and a brick patio, handicap parking spot and accessible patio. And then we are looking at putting in a few witch hazel trees. If you continue into Zone 2, we are filling out the understory because we'll be removing some invasive plants that are in the boundary between the abutting property. And it's going to be mostly blueberries and shadbush and things of that nature. We are also proposing to do a meadow installation, again, to reduce the lawn area in this site. And it's going to be primarily native grasses and pollinator-friendly species, grading down towards wetland plants as you get to the wetland. We'll be continuing to do invasive species removal within the wetland, and continuing down towards the harbor, we will be working on buffering that house with additional landscape installation and allowing the grasses to mostly grow up with only some mowed paths in between. Our goal, once we get here down towards the creeks, is to allow this area to naturalize. Right now it's mowed lawn. We'd like to remove the cement barriers or granite retaining wall that are functioning as a coastal bank and just slope that naturally and allow that to grow in. And let's see if I missed anything. I think the only thing that I might have missed is that there's a retaining wall along this house line at 156 Orange Street, and we are going to cover that with some soil in hopes that it just degrades naturally over time, again sort of losing the hardscaping on the property and allowing it to just be more of a natural grade. The only other thing I'd like to mention is that the 2-track drive that runs through the property has to remain. There's actually a legal easement that requires emergency access to the neighboring property, so we don't have a choice to get rid of that. I would be happy to answer any questions, and I also brought along a species list if anybody's interested.
One more thing just to add, and I may have just missed it. They're also requesting to extend the existing
Oh, yes.
walkway
Thank
from
you.
the dock
Yep,
back to get to where the
exactly.
retaining wall is leaving.
Yep, where the retaining wall is leaving, so we're going to extend the dock to meet that grade. Again, allowing that area to naturalize. Right now, there's a few stairs down to the lawn, and we'll just be removing those stairs and having it straight shot across. It also allows us to get out away from, I mean, right now it dead ends at the salt marsh line, basically, and we'd like to be outside of those,
So
at least
the
the
elevation of
25.
the walkway will go to where the top stair is.
Yes, it's gonna just continue straight along until it meets the slope of the bank.
Same details of construction that were prior.
Excuse me?
Same details of construction for the.
Yes, completely. Completely.
Can I see that plant list?
Sure. I've crossed out a couple things,
Thank you.
2 in particular.
Rachel?
Yes.
This is the first time, I think, in my time on the commission that anybody's proposed witch hazel. Is it native to Nantucket?
Witch hazel, I don't think it's native to Nantucket. It's pretty commonly used here.
I've seen it as an ornamental.
Yep.
So is it going to be outside the 50 then, or?
It is, it's
a ways-
actually right up against Orange Street.
Okay.
So, although I described the whole property, actually the part right up against Orange Street doesn't even fall within the wetland zone. Wetland buffer.
I don't know if anybody else wants to see this. I appreciate a greater use of native plants on this site. For sure.
So the main public access, you know, I'm just driving along Orange Street, I've been trying to kind of see where is this place? And I haven't stopped to try and walk
Right.
around and see so do you really get at it from Orange Street, or do you have to go around?
The driveway is basically across from Roasted on Orange Street.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh,
there's
it's down there. Okay,
right, there's a
alright.
small parking area there, and then it's a long property that proceeds all the way down to the creek's
Right.
wetland system.
And the dock that you've replaced or are replacing, that's gonna be available for public use?
It is available for public use, yes. And the dock itself is there, we're just extending the elevated walkway.
Right.
Yep.
The only question I have with this landscape plan is that there's a significant amount of horticultural varieties in here. I'm not sure exactly where those cultivars fall within the zones, but we wouldn't want those within 50 feet of any wetland area. Just using the type species instead would be great.
Okay, we can work on that.
Yeah.
We've had a little trouble with that in the past, but we can definitely work towards that.
That does tend to be a standard condition for us at this point, so. Any other thoughts or comments from the commission? Ian, do you have any thoughts or comments?
No, I'm very pleased that they're going to keep the dock and have public access.
Yes. Any questions from the public? Okay, Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
We actually do.
Yay. Rachel, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to close?
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, by voice vote, Ian,
Yes.
Arisman, yes.
LaFleur, yes.
Engelborg, yes.
Phillips, yes.
Steinauer, yes.
Topham, yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. I'm excited
you.
to use this property in the future.
Fabulous.
Okay, moving on to 28 Lily Street LLC at 28 Lily Street.
I'll deal with that. Just Yeah, just throw them on the back table. I'll fight with them. I have small ones.
Oh, okay.
Hayden sends the big ones. I was actually just curious to see who was going to be.
I have only one set of the bigger items.
You use those. That's fine.
Jeff Blackwell for the applicant. This is a project that is mostly landscaping on a developed lot adjacent to the Lily Pond Basin. The house is currently under renovation. Part of that, or part of the work that's in the buffer zone was approved under a determination of applicability earlier this year. And in the meantime, the client and the landscape architect have been working on a landscaping plan, which includes construction of some terraces, walkways, outdoor shower, and stairs, including some planting beds. All of the work that is proposed associated with the main house is more than 75 feet away from the wetland boundary that was approved earlier this year. The other smaller element of work is some drainage around the existing garage. The garage is located at a much lower elevation on the property, and water from basically from Lily Street crosses the neighboring property above, and there's a pronounced bank, and the garage is at the bottom of the bank. So the proposal is to put in a stone-filled trench and a perforated pipe on the south side of the building and pipe the water around to the north side of the garage with stone-filled trenches and with perforated pipes to basically not interrupt the direction or volume of flow, but to try to work it around the existing structure, which is very wet around the building. So there won't be any effect on the groundwater depth or volume making its way to the wetland in the Lily Pond system. That's the overview of the work at the house and at the garage. And I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the commission?
Yeah, the only question I have refers to just one species selected for planting, which is Pennisetum alopecuroides, or fountain grass. That grass is being referred to MyPAG to be considered for the invasive plant prohibited list. 3 members of the genus already are on that list. It doesn't currently have any status, but I personally wouldn't like to see that get put in because it has a high possibility of becoming prohibited in the future. So I know there's lots of other alternatives available. I was wondering if the applicant might consider a different grass there.
Yes. I will speak with the landscape architect, and we'll find a different species of grass that's acceptable to the commission.
You can certainly condition that out too.
Okay.
That grass be replaced by a species to be approved, or you can make that clear as well.
Yeah, I just, that's a species that's going to cause a lot of issues in the future, and it's being planted pretty frequently now, and I'd like to see it stop being planted. So I think we have a possibility to start this trend here.
Yeah, I've seen it escaping from properties locally, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get back to you with the alternate and see if that's benign.
this one, the Pennisedum. It has like short little fat seed heads at the top. It looks cute. That's why people like it.
Yeah, it looks really nice, but it does escape from cultivation into minimally managed areas, and I think it's a species we'll see probably banned in the future.
We appreciate your willingness to find something else.
Sure, of course.
My question, what is the groundwater at here? Is this like within groundwater, the structure?
I would say that the footings of this structure, I took a drive out just before the meeting and took a walk around. And the footings of this garage are definitely within groundwater. And walking around the building, it's squishy.
Right.
So the gravel trench and the piping is certainly not going to have an infiltrating effect. It's going to be moving the water from one location to another
So
effect.
you're trying to catch it essentially as it comes downhill into this trench and then flip
Exactly.
it around.
Help it
Okay.
along.
Because I remember
Yep.
that being like soupy,
squishy.
wet down
It
there.
sure is. Yep.
Okay.
Well, if I may chime in, Jeff, I mean, it's frequently very wet indeed, and is this really going to make any difference?
I think it's worth a try. I'm not 100% confident that it's going to make a big difference in the squishiness, if I could use a technical term, around the building, but I think it's worth a try, and it's a benign effort, I think.
It's a little downside.
Yes.
Awesome. Any other questions or thoughts from the commission? Questions from the public? Okay. Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
We do. This was really good.
Jeff, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Okay, do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, by voice vote, Ian?
Yes.
Arisman, yes.
LaFleur, yes.
Engelborg, yes.
Phillips, yes.
Steinauer, aye.
Okay, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to Water's Edge Nominee Trust at 16 Medui Creek Road.
Yeah, please. So I wasn't sure who was coming.
Trees we kill.
Well, that's why I try to use the small size.
Yeah, oh, no, I
You got other plans on the other side, you recycle them?
Requiring paper filings, I think a lot of us would be much happier.
The sugarcane paper, the corn paper, or whatever. You know.
bamboo paper, yeah.
All right.
I would love to see us be able to look at this stuff. I know,
Many wishes, but
anyway.
yeah.
For the applicant, Art Gasparo, Nantucket Engineering. I'm before you tonight with a notice of intent for a property which is under development per a previous order of conditions. And I have a few aspects I'd like to go over with you and then let you know right from the outset that we will be requesting a continuance. It's still under review from Natural Heritage, but in case there's additional information or questions, then I wanted to present it and receive your feedback. This is the property out all the way at the end of Medui Creek Road, which is fronts on Pulpus Harbor and Nantucket Harbor, and essentially makes up the east side of the entrance to Pulpus Harbor. There, it's a large property with a fairly limited buildable area. The project notice of intent before you tonight is so that we can essentially finish the project in compliance with the previous order, which has expired. That order, you may recall, that project was subject to some litigation and appeals, and it sort of got dragged out for a while. The structures that you see on the plan are all under construction, and what we're asking for as part of this notice of intent are essentially some what we see as minor landscape modifications within the previously approved limit of work. So we've tried to make all of the adjustments, if you will, within that limit of work. There's a silt fence on site, which is in good condition and has been maintained throughout the project along these limits of work. The other aspect that we're asking for is that there was wetland mitigation replication areas associated with the project that still need to be installed, and we want to make sure that we do that installation with a current permit. So I've submitted the same exact plan as what was previously approved, and we just want to make sure that we can have like I say, a current permit to come in and do that. There's a couple of reasons that didn't occur. We couldn't do the plantings until we had water, which required electricity, and so there was quite a time there. We had to bring in conduits and whatnot, which were all permitted, but it took quite a while to get that up and running. And then they had water this summer, but this is the only access road into the construction site, and so you couldn't really do the wetland mitigation during the level of construction that was occurring. They couldn't shut it down. So this is the season the contractor feels like he can get going on this, and they've reached a point of the job that he can manage that. So we've left all the plantings the same. There's detailed protocols. This had been hashed out pretty comprehensively during the previous permit application, though obviously it's open again for your review if there was something you thought could be done differently or better. But we would like to essentially proceed with the previous plan and get those two areas rebuilt. The other aspect of the project that is essentially the only addition outside of the previously approved work area is there is an existing boathouse and pier on the property with Chapter 91 licenses, and there's erosion that's happening. It's probably only a 5-foot high bank. You can see I included a lot of photos, and the owner is not looking to armor the entire bank. He wanted to fill it and plant it. I explained that if we just fill it, it's gonna kind of slide out. So my suggestion was to just put along the very toe of the bank two natural fiber rolls, not with the casing or anything like that, just enough to hold the sand that we put in and then plant it all with beach grass, just to try to. The rest of the whole bank along that area is nicely vegetated, and it's just sort of denuded and eroded. I think there's a natural tendency at that spot for either people to walk down there, or there's quite a bit of deer traffic in it, up and down through that one spot. I don't think we're going to do anything really about that, but hopefully at least with some vegetation. So again, it's not we only limited it to the two rolls, and I think that one of them essentially is going to get trenched in. That's shown on this plan, and then not even really be more than less than 2 feet, more like probably 18 inches above the level of the beach, and then covered. And that's only for 25 feet long. It's just between, there's pilings that are supporting the boathouse ramp, and then the pilings that support the dock. So just to try to connect that with the fiber rolls. No reinforcing going back, and I have proposed anchors just because of course wouldn't want to lose them. But I don't think there's not a lot of wave force in this area. It's probably one of the most sheltered waterfront spots, I think, on the island. So that's that part of the proposal. We go back, just wanted to give you the overview of everything. I think the part that I would like to talk about just specifically is the landscape changes. There is some patios and stone landings. Again, this is sort of your highest level final detail of construction drawings versus the opposite of when we're often at a permit stage when we're here and all the details sort of haven't been finished out, figured out. This is the kind of exactly what they would like to build. And then a series of landscape drainage, which would be just small plastic basins with the little
beehive type of a grate, very small.
6-inch.
And then that would just go to a 4-inch, and then have various outflows to daylight, again, all within the previously approved limit of work. So all well outside the 25-foot buffer with completely vegetated buffers. I suggested to them in this when they were working on this, it might seem like a lot, that it would be preferable to do more outfalls with less flow than to concentrate it all and put it. So it sort of just disperses the water to recharge the resource areas. And then what they added, again at my suggestion, which is a good detail on one of the sheets, is I know that one of the main concerns of the commission would be sediment transport from where these discharges happen. Again, this is just gravity water, but still you can get some scouring that occurs. So just to put in 2 foot by 5 foot kind of cobble, which will all grow, the vegetation can come back through them, and just to avoid any scour or carrying of sediment down to the resource areas. All of the there's no new structural elements within the 50-foot buffer zone. The 50-foot buffer zone is represented by the dash double dot line, and again, I think everything is within the scope of the previously issued permit. It's just taken some time to get to this project, and we had extended that permit as well and had reached the ability to extend it further. So I think this is I've consulted with staff, and this is I think the right way to go to finish the project.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
And you feel confident that the contractor will be able to get this work done within what time frame?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there's, this would give us 3 years, but I am 90% sure this is all done for next spring for occupancy and to be done.
Oh, that was what I was hoping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The structures are weather tight at this point.
My question is about some of the outfalls where you're
Yep.
using cobble. Was there any thought on trying to use vegetation instead of cobble to try and slow down?
I thought about what I first suggested was perhaps a little swale and a berm. I think that because we're already at the limit of work, it would require more reworking and disturbance, and I didn't want it to push further. The other option that we had discussed, being the landscape architects, and that would be some kind of a turf reinforcing, so we could put in just a plastic section of sort of a geogrid that would come up, and that would serve the same purpose. I thought that the stone was a more natural option. We're open if there's something that the commission thought was preferable. I thought just basically, to me, their detail was more detailed than what I was describing. I thought just a small 3-foot diameter, what I call trap rock type of a basin, like a large angular rock. I mean, they are very detailed, so if there's something that you think would be better, but the idea was to very much limit grade disturbances. Essentially, this is kind of close to graded now, and we're down near the silt fence.
Would you be willing to try a grasscrete installation?
Yeah, well, that was what I meant by the geogrid. If that's absolutely, if the commission would prefer that, I think it would serve the same function.
Yeah, I mean, it's just cement grid essentially, and you said that the vegetation will grow up through the cobble. Well, it will grow up a little bit better through that, in my opinion.
And I guess the question, just to have a discussion, if I may, would be, we could either do grasscrete, which is the essentially concrete pavers, or a plastic. But if the concrete is that would be fine, and I can get you a detail of that for the next drawing, for the next hearing.
Yeah, I know there's the grass crete and the grass pave, which is the plastic one. I'd prefer not to see the plastic one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay.
I have one question about the plants again. I guess I'm going to be the grass guy today. Yeah. I know it was approved in the previous permit, but in the upland side slope planting, I would love to see the purple love grass taken out of this as well.
Yeah, that's a native.
Purple love grass is fine. It's the weeping
Yeah.
love grass.
Weeping
you
love
don't wanna
grass.
see.
Okay. Oh, yeah. That's right. Sorry. The
Okay.
leaping love grass is the other one we want. Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Any other thoughts or questions? Questions from the public? RJ?
RJ Turcott, Nantucket Land Council. I just have a couple questions. The first one is these proposed drainage spillways. Is roof runoff going to be discharged into the resource area?
May I? Through. The roof runoff is all handled under the previous permit. We have, and I could get you the details there, they've been filed, but there's subsurface infiltrators that have already were permitted and installed, and all of the roof runoff already runs into subsurface drainage. So this is only collecting the surface, any surface water.
Thank you.
How is that spillway, the stone, being held in place?
It was just going to be compacted and,
just-
we're very small, but again, we're going to change to the grasscrete, which would be stable just by nature of the blocks itself.
Okay. And lastly, that boathouse, is that just a shed structure? Have any utilities or anything like that?
It is open stud on the inside, and there are utilities that serve the dock and the boathouse there. But there's, it's not finished, and it's not winterized or anything like that. It couldn't be habitated if that was the question.
No. And how are these core logs to be anchored into place?
So the detail, I know it probably didn't show too much, but with the duckbill anchors that would be driven with just a sledgehammer and a rod, essentially, and then wrap a cable around them, 5 foot on, so you'd have 4 of them probably for each one. There's not a lot of force. That's probably even more than you need. There's not a lot of force here. You just don't want them to slide around.
How long has that boathouse been there, that structure?
Pre-1971.
Okay.
I had done the Chapter 91 permitting for that boathouse and the pier.
So I suppose what I'm going to say is that I don't really see why it would be a reasonable alternative to move that boathouse back rather than armoring another section of Nantucket shoreline.
I don't think that it's a water dependent use, so it's actually a ramp down, historic, licensed structure. The point of the rolls of just having 2 at the bottom is not at all really for armoring. It's more to support restoration as we see it for the bank. I don't know if you saw the photos that were in there. I think if you just were to fill and plant it right now, it's going to keep sliding out. So,
But that's what it would naturally be doing, correct? If there was no boathouse or dock there.
yeah, I mean, I don't think the boathouse or dock is really, the rest of the bank through that area is all very stable. I think it's just a result of activity right in that area.
Could the applicant potentially build a longer ramp if they move the boathouse backwards?
I don't think moving the boathouse is on the table at all. I mean, I'm not going to even, I just don't think that that's part of, I think you'd have more disturbance to go and do that for something that's been there for so long, and you'd have a larger footprint in that resource area. So I guess I'm just not seeing the real benefit to the protected interests of a relocation of that structure.
So I guess my last comment to the commission would be continuing to permit these structures, or not structures, but altering the dynamics of the island as it erodes, even in the low energy areas when there are other options, is something that the commission should look into and have a serious discussion about, because almost every project that comes in now is recommending altering how things are eroded, how sediment is moving everywhere on the island. This isn't a harbor on the outer shore. And to seriously have discussions about other options for that's not a dwelling, that's an auxiliary structure at this point that we're altering the shoreline for, when there could be potentially other options. So I would just comment that the commission should have a serious discussion about that going forward.
Thank you.
I just have one question about something you said earlier as well, that you think that erosion there is potentially caused by people going down it, or maybe deer going up and down it. I mean, we can never stop what the deer are going to do, but is there a way to mark that so that people aren't accessing through where that Kalar is being put in?
We could do like some stakes and a string or something. The owner's not gonna go through this and then want people to walk on where he just spent the money on the plantings, and they can get down there by the boathouse ramp, and they haven't been occupying the property, so they're kind of, they've asked me, this concerns them that there's no vegetation on the bank in this spot, and so
I think that would be good, especially if we're doing this now and then potentially not having to do it again in 5 years or wherever it would be. If it could vegetate without further disturbance, would be great.
And I had a thought, I guess, on a similar vein. When I look at this photo, I was just wondering if they would be willing, because it looks like it's mowed right up to the edge, to allow the top, 2 feet
sure
to grow, so that less deer are going to come through, less water is going to run off. And it even looks like there's beach grass, and is that groundsel growing down there? That's pretty small.
Yeah.
Even letting like some of those shrubs grow at the top would probably help some of that erosion.
Okay, I'll talk to them about it and come up with a distance there.
Buffer.
I think it would help direct people to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even in the areas right there that are to the left and right of the denuded part, you have some pretty nice shrub vegetation.
Yes.
And I think that with just allowing that to grow, it's going to move over and occupy that whole bank, and this is going to be the last time I have to deal with it, hopefully.
Well, I take RJ's point. He's absolutely right, I feel, to bring it up. But the reason why I didn't was because it seems relatively insignificant, and I don't think it establishes a precedent going forward for protecting structures or that, have no claim to statutory protection. But I do think he is right that we should bring this in when we discuss altering the regulation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's on our list.
Yeah, and for me, the fact that this is in such a fairly low dynamic area, it's sheltered and all of that, I think that makes me feel better about it, because it's not, we're not trying to change an active erosion situation artificially. I mean, this is kind of a historic thing, and I mean, for what it is, and I think letting that vegetation come back makes a great deal of sense as well. But I also agree with RJ's point, because I think we've got to be vigilant, and there could be small places where we would not want something, so the size isn't necessarily controlling.
Well, I'm all for natural revegetation, but I think in this situation, we'd be much better off to plant native, to plant it to, because it's going to take a while for that vegetation to spread through there. And if it continues to erode, it may not spread through there. So I think this is, as Ian said, a fairly small plan, and that Art has minimized by, keeping the logs to just a couple, like he said, to sort of stabilize the toe and to provide a stable planting surface. And it is, it is a boathouse, which, you know, historically, the commission has considered a real boathouse to be a water-dependent use. Therefore, it does not need a waiver to be in the buffer zone there. And it's old in the first place, so I think this project is fine, all in all.
Yeah. Okay, any other thoughts or comments?
Could I request a continuance then, please, to the 6th?
The 6th, okay. So we will continue this conversation on November 6th.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're gonna move on to 64 Wall Street LLC at 66 Wall Street. Yeah, I don't know where he went to.
Mark Ritz from Site Design Engineering, representing the applicants at 66 Walsh Street, used to be 64 Walsh Street. Work was done on this property under a previous order of conditions. The order allowed for construction, redevelopment of a property, construction of a house, a pool, a secondary dwelling, some light landscaping and grading, a bunch of, site modifications of a previously developed site. During the work on the property, a low retaining wall was constructed on the west side, and some fill was placed behind the retaining wall. These were not approved under the original order. The original order expired a few weeks ago, so we can't rectify that under the original order. So we've come in with a new notice of intent requesting approval from the commission to remove the retaining wall that was built without the benefit of a permit, and to remove the fill that was placed behind it, and to regrade it to the conditions that had been previously approved. That is the extent of the project.
What happened here? I mean, is this just like a contractor gone wild? Because we're in the flood zone, so there's no fill, there's an unpermitted wall. There were some other things that went on this site that are, not really allowable in the flood zone. Yeah, like breakaway panels.
I can't speak to, what was done over many years of work by contractors. All I know is that, we've got a wall and some fill that are non-compliant, and, we're asking to rectify that at this point. Mine is not the realm of who did what on the contracting and building end of things. Basically it was brought to our attention when we were looking at a cert for this property that there was an out of compliance situation, and we're here to fix that at this point. I know that Dan Malloy discussed the removal of the wall and the regrading with Jeff fairly extensively, I believe, on site, and I think that Jeff was generally supportive of the approach. We're just basically here to fix that out of compliance issue.
How much material are we talking with the grading?
The wall has variable exposure ranging from about 6 to 18 inches. So we're talking about, half a foot to a foot and a half of fill in a fairly narrow strip of property. So it's gonna cut back to the house and grade out, nominally 6 to 12 inches over a couple of feet.
So was the whole lot filled as well?
No. This side was a bit lower. There were some minor grade adjustments, some evening out of the lot that were permitted under the original approval. A a few inches here and there. But this side was lower and was just filled to a much greater extent than had been previously permitted.
Do we have spot elevations now of this site as compared to the original? Because that's something I'd like to
Yes,
compare.
we have them on this plan, and they were on the original approval. And I believe that, I don't know if you had a chance to compare those two.
So when we compared the certificate of compliance request plan, I don't want to make it more confusing with more plans, and then did our field inspection, this was the area that didn't pass muster the most. Obviously the wall was pretty obvious, but we didn't have other grading concerns elsewhere on the lot to the same degree.
I'm just trying to figure out the logistics here. So we have a notice of intent that was permitted, order of conditions, which does not include this retaining wall. The retaining wall was built out of compliance. So now we have, did a certificate of compliance not get issued?
Correct. The certificate of compliance request was withdrawn because
Okay.
of this issue. And just to try to help with it is the removal of the wall is something that I think we felt needed to be properly permitted to remove it, even though it was not in compliance, to permit its removal, because just simply ordering it removed wouldn't have the same level of oversight, and they still can't close out the original permit until it's back into compliance with that permit. But it's expired, so they can't amend or modify or deal with anything, and that's kind of where
Work.
So theoretically, if there was an enforcement issue or order issued out to say you have to remove this wall, you know, what's
Maybe-
the difference between doing that and having this? Because what we're saying now is we're basically saying, oh, it's not a big deal that you built an unpermitted structure. It's allowable. Now we're going to allow you to take it out. We're saying it's allowable twice. If we had issued enforcement, now we're saying it's not allowable, and you have to deal with it in the way that the regulations state.
They'd still have to issue a notice, even with the enforcement.
Wouldn't an enforcement require us to come in and file a notice for the work in the resource area anyway? So we're basically, we were put on notice by commission staff that there was a violation. So, I mean, we're achieving the same thing sort of preemptively. You know, we've been told that we're out of compliance, so we filed what we would be required to file anyway under an enforcement to bring ourselves back into compliance. If the permit were still active, we would just go out there and have done the work by now to restore it to existing conditions, but we didn't want to work on the site with no valid permit to work at this point. So we're just here, asking for a new order, not to bless the previous, work that was out of compliance, but just to allow us through the proper channels to remove, what should be removed.
In my opinion, if somebody wants to do the right thing, we should let
That
them.
if it was enforcement action, then there would be a penalty attached. Isn't that your point, Seth?
Yeah.
As opposed to basically turning a blind eye to an infraction?
Yeah, if not a penalty, at least a history of, in this process, noting that there was an infraction taken, we're dealing with it in the proper way to say that we recognize it was taken. And I know the end goal is the same. I think everybody here wants the wall removed, but I also don't take lightly to structures being built in outside of the permits compliance.
I agree with you guys there. I think when we look to redo our regulations, we will hopefully solidify these enforcements so that they are more clear. I think because we don't have clear fines at this point, I don't see a problem with the way they've gone through this. I think if we had, a clear structure to fine for this enforcement, it would be a little bit different. And in the future, hopefully it will be. But currently, they'd need to apply for this notice either way. That's my thought.
I had one question. So there's also a hedge, it says in the grading detail, and that was the one part I was concerned about. So the hedge is going to be removed because you've got because you have to take that out when you're taking out the fence, and the hedges could be removed and reset. So I wasn't sure, there's already enough going on, so I just wasn't clear why that's part of it.
Well, the hedge is very close to the wall, and
It
just
is, okay.
yeah, it's the wall, butts right up against it. So it's basically as needed to try to preserve, the plants, take them out, get rid of the wall, regrade, I'm sure that if it's possible to remove the wall without removing the hedge and regrading, I think that work, they'll try to keep the work to a minimum, obviously. But
So the hedge was there obviously before the wall.
There was a hedge there separating this from the abutting property. I don't know if that has been augmented as part of the redevelopment, but there had been a hedge there historically.
And then how is this grade going to be is it going to be essentially natural? I'm sorry, I'm speaking from a point of ignorance here, so.
I mean, it's gonna be sloped basically to about the extent of the foundation of the house, about to the extent of where previous original historic grade was on the property. So it's just going to be sloped out, kind of 3 to 6 or 7 feet out, kind of the way it had been previously. And then it's going to be revegetated as lawn and landscaped area, as the whole property was prior to redevelopment.
So in the front of the house, you have a stake that says 5 feet grade height, and then in this parking area along the side, it says another 5 feet. So what will that truly be? Because that's not going to be correct.
Well, those are existing. I mean, those are existing current grades.
But that 5 foot in the gray area is going to go down to what?
It's going to go down to approximately 4.
Yeah, because right now you're saying 16, 18.
Yeah, it varies. It varies along the length of the wall. I believe that further. I believe in the middle section, I haven't been out to the site recently, but there's a section where you have a little more wall exposure, and then there are sections where the wall's about 6 inches high. So we're going down, we just, in the grading detail, we provided sort of the variable height, but it's gonna, at that 5 foot spot grade, I believe we're going down a little over a foot there, and then it's gonna just basically grade. That grade's going to cut pretty sharply to the house, and it's going to grade out more gradually in front of the house and adjacent to the pool.
So this is where I know.
I have a question.
Yep.
Which is, it's purely a supposition, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but did we have an issue about 7 years ago when someone raised the grade and water was running in that area, and water was running off to other properties? And could this wall have been put in because in fact the grade was raised here? And so the risk is that when the wall is taken out, that there's going to be runoff into the other property now?
All right, I'll try my best to answer that, Ian. So I think the first part of the question is the runoff issue that I think you're talking about was a different address on Wall Street, but that whole neighborhood, Walsh and Willard, is fraught with runoff issues and puddles and things that are there. It's not uncommon in that neighborhood at all. I think your question about where the water is going to go post wall removal, I think the intent is to require that to be removed and regraded to restore what was the original kind of flow pattern that was there. So, I mean, the water very well may have gone off-site before, but I think the intent is to make sure that the water they used to get from point A to point B still goes from point A to point B and not from point A to the new condition that's there. So,
right. So I guess I'm puzzled as to why the wall was put in and wondering whether it was illegally graded. Is there any evidence of there being unpermitted fill in there to raise the building?
So to answer that, Ian, that's kind of the crux of what brought us here, is that on that side of the site where the wall was put in did not match the original permitted condition by a little bit of a variable factor along that way. I mean, I kind of appreciate the detail because it makes a little bit of sense, but it's not like it's a uniform. We came up, 16 inches or 18 inches. Is depending on where you are on the site. Is it varies that, really half a foot to about 1.5 feet, depending on where you're going. And I think looking at it, I mean, it's just to kind of create a level surface around the building is what it kind of appeared to be the intent. I mean, that's just kind of from our site visit. But I think that's why when we went out to do the site inspection and originally compared the grades from the permitted plan, the amended order of conditions plan, and then the certificate of compliance plan, flagged kind of that area as an area to make sure we looked at. And then when we looked at it in the field, saw the wall and said, well, that's the answer to that question, is why is that grade different on the as-built than was originally permitted? And then the wall being in the field is what kind of brought that to where we are today.
Are there breakaway panels on that west wall?
So the breakaway panels were a different issue. So on the main structure were those constructed panels that weren't the breakaway panels. And then on our inspection, the rear structure, the panels were just simply plywooded over. So that's something that, following that inspection, our site visit was conducted the second time with the property owner, Mr. Malloy. I was there, and then the building commissioner, Paul Murphy, was also there. That issue is really more in his court than in ours to some degree for building code compliance. So I would have to default to his regulatory standard, but I think those would need to be rectified at the end of the day as well.
Part of it is if we're lowering the grade on that side and they're at the current grade, if he lowers it, it's not going to be code, so he's got to lower the breakaway panels as well, and that's a code thing. But just
Yeah.
FYI.
No, so I that's why when this originally came up and we saw those, that's why we tried to involve Paul as quickly as possible to make sure that he could do whatever needed to be done.
Yeah, because the breakaway panels are part of our order as well, right?
So breakaway panels are kind of implied through just our regular regulations within the flood zone, where we require that you meet the standards of the building code to the applicable flood zone, essentially. So it's something where, in this case, you're having to meet the 9th edition of the code in the AE7 zone, I believe is AE7 zone. It seems like it'd be around the right spot for AE7.
I believe so.
But well, I could look. Yeah. Regardless of whether it's 7, 8, or 9 for AE zone, but there's requirements that go with for the building code, and it involves everything from, freeboard above the zone, mechanical locations in the building, electrical wiring locations in the building, plumbing locations in the building. I will be the first to say, I don't know that code. That's not my wall, and that's why we involve Paul to make sure that it's ultimately correct.
And that'll be brought into compliance prior to a search for this anyway, because that's covered not only in your regs but also in the building code regs. So that has to be brought into compliance. But as Jeff said, when spot grades were reviewed for the COC plan that was submitted, the since withdrawn COC plan, the area, the retaining wall and immediately adjacent to the retaining wall is the area that did not match, that was not, in substantial compliance with what was permitted. So that's why we're back with this side. A more significant amount of alteration was done on this side with the wall. So that's why we're here looking at that, and that the other spot grades on the property were substantially in compliance with what was permitted.
Okay. My worry here is that we need a plan with better detail, so that whoever's coming in to fix this grade has spot grades every few feet, so that it is abundantly clear where they need to be at the end of this. And think it is clear
doesn't
from this
show it.
plan.
This
Yeah,
doesn't
and I'd
have
like
it.
to see,
The
you know, a plan submitted that again is really clear how those grades are gonna change, so that we don't.
I'm confused
Yeah.
by all this. It doesn't really
And I'd like
spell
to
it
see
out.
the original grade at this site, you know, so whatever came before us originally, it would be great if we could get that.
The spot grade locations we have here are pretty close to the actual spot grade locations that were provided on the original plan. There was not a huge amount of detail provided at the time. This was a flood zone project with no significant proposed fill, so there wasn't a huge amount of detail on grade provided, but we can put in more proposed spot grades. Is that something you would like us to bring to the commission for review, or is that something that would be doable through staff as an updated plan? We can do either way. I'm just asking.
I mean, I would like to see it come before us.
Okay.
Yeah, because this grading detail is not detailed enough, so that's really, because that was the issue I was having, trying to figure out how is that going to be and how's that going to work, and it's a little too simple.
Yeah, I think it's good as well. We're going to be not in an ideal situation if you're saying that you only have 3 or 4 spot grades in the original plan. Some of it is going to be trying to figure out, okay, is there a difference in trying to assess the fill that's taken out versus the soil that was already there? But it would still be good to have a much more detailed plan going forward.
We wouldn't be able to determine that from existing soils because there was foundation work done, you know, and there was over dig, and so we you know, but we can, you know, the site was, generally speaking, like most sites in the area, older developed sites, it was more or less flat. It had a little bit of topography on it. We have a few spot grades from the original conditions plan. We can put those back on, and we can interpolate spot grades in between to have the contractor work towards.
Any other thoughts?
Just a comment about the fine situation and stuff with an enforcement order. First of all, I think if this is going to be the final outcome anyway, and having an enforcement order puts more work on Jeff and Joe's desk, and the cost, the fine we would probably levy would probably be fairly insignificant to the cost of putting in this wall, taking the wall out, and the cost of another notice. I think he's fined himself more than we ever would. I think, if anybody's, gonna be to blame for the cost of this, it's the owner, and it's gonna be a substantial cost already. And we don't get, the commission doesn't get the fine, it just goes to the town, so it's not like it benefits our operation.
So just to kind of elaborate that, so the way it's currently structured, and just to kind of do, I would be guesstimating at math at this, but right now, our regulation kind of allows us to do, because our bylaw isn't constructed correctly to do it, and neither is the regulation, is we'd be at kind of a $50 per day penalty back to when, essentially, we can't go back to when it was constructed because we don't know for sure, is it would essentially be when they filed and we did that site inspection would be the first justifiable date. So even if it's been 3 weeks, you'd be looking at like $50 a day for about 20 days ish. So,
which is not insignificant.
For you or I, it's significant. For homeowners in downtown Nantucket, that's like pennies.
Yeah, I understand the whole conversation here about enforcement and fines as well. My point, and I know our bylaw or the regulations aren't set up for it right now. I think it's important to think about as we do the update. For me, I understand the concern about additional work and everything too, but for me, it's important to have a history associated with the project showing that there was a punitive action taken for things that happened out of compliance.
Sure. So one of the ways we've done that, just to kind of touch on it, because we fortunately don't have to do it lots and lots, is even in the order in itself, is we typically in conditions like this include a finding in the part of the order that kind of outlines that it was a filing done for a non-compliant issue, where we detail it through there, and then that it's going to get recorded on the title in some way. So going forward, any future owners or property owners that pull up that order with that finding in it, if they review it, are going to clearly see that something that was non-compliant. And I think that's how we've typically done it in the past. I'm not saying it's the best way in the long term, but that's what we've done in the interim here.
I guess, you know, I'm an old geezer, I know, but my thought is that enforcement orders are to correct situations, not necessarily to punish people, you know? I mean, I guess having raised a couple of kids, I never felt like punishing was the best way to change behavior. I don't know,
Your disappointment did it?
No, I think just, you know, talking to them about what's going on, and yeah, and if they did something, then they fixed it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's our goal here, you know, a condition was out of compliance, we're here to fix that. And we're trying to, you know, we would have done it under the existing order if it hadn't expired out from under us a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm fine with what the administration done, I just want the site corrected.
Yeah, because it's just
So, it's the
kind of
bottom line.
egregious what went on here, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, just not for nothing, but timing wise, the previous order had expired about like 5 or 6 days before we reviewed it. So, I mean, they just missed having an open order to try to extend. So, some unlucky timing.
Any other thoughts from the commission? Questions from the public? Okay, so will you come back in 2 weeks?
We'll come back in 2 weeks with an updated plan showing some additional spot grades, our proposed spot grades, and hopefully that will satisfy the commission and we can move forward with getting this done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to Cindy and John Gallagher at 34 Washing Pond Road.
For the applicant, Art Gasparo, Nantucket Engineering, before you tonight with a project to remove a structure and patio retaining wall areas from within the buffer zone to a coastal bank. The house is being taken out and we will restore the area to match the surrounding grade. We'd establish a 25-foot no disturb buffer zone with vegetation, and then maintain a lawn in the area that's outside of the 25-foot buffer zone, which there's sort of a long note, if you will, on the side of the plan that details what's being proposed. But that's really the summary. There's an existing set of beach stairs which would remain. The structure is has been out there for quite a while and it's going away.
Okay, but just when I saw the photographs of the house, and this is just going to be demoed? I mean, if they're
It's
not
removed.
moving it,
No, removed from you know, it won't be in your jurisdiction. As far as I know, it's likely to go away, but I can't commit that that they wouldn't end up on. I don't really know.
Right.
I just know that it's not going to be in your jurisdiction anymore.
Yeah, they're gonna wanna bring it back as far as.
Yeah, I think it's going away.
It's feasible.
I think it's being, you know, taken away.
No, I was just, it just seems amazing.
It does.
Something like that is throwaway.
As someone who's personally moved a few houses, I agree.
Yeah. This place is wild.
It's the nature of the beast out here, though.
Yeah.
I know, it really is stunning. The rest of the lawn, they want to keep lawn though, as part of this?
Yeah, the area that they take out, we would just leave as, we would make that into lawn area. Again, outside the 25 where it would typically be allowed anyway.
Yeah.
The grades fall away from the bank, so it's not like it's going to create runoff into your resource area. I think that, that's for right now to restore that area. That's just the sort of, and figure out what else is going to go on with the property. That's just the easiest or most straightforward. We wouldn't want to come in with a comprehensive planting plan at this point.
And you're just gonna source clean fill from somewhere for the foundation?
Yeah, they'll just bring in clean sand, absolutely. And remove. I don't know. I think it's a full font. My sense, based on having been out there, is that it is a full foundation with the garage is off to the side at that lower level. But I didn't go inside. Yeah, we would just clean sand, compacted in lifts, just enough to not have sinkholes.
Any other?
And the paved parking's outside of our jurisdiction, but I'm just curious about what part of it.
The part that's in your jurisdiction will be removed. I think it will all probably be removed, but again, yes, I think it's going to go away.
Right, okay.
It's like,
Howard, if it's full foundation, won't it be exposed when the erosion continues?
We're going to take it out.
Okay, great.
awesome. Any other thoughts or questions from the commission? Questions from the public? No. Jeff, do we have everything we need to close?
I believe we're still waiting for Heritage.
Correct.
Okay.
So unfortunately,
We'd like to continue to the 6th, please. If there's-
but I think if people are, we'll draft a positive order for it for next time.
Yeah, I think that sounds
Yeah,
good.
sounds good.
Yeah. For once, you think it's like the easiest punch ever. Like we're
He's
taking
just
everything
commenting.
out
He
of
gets a good feeling.
jurisdiction,
Yeah.
and you're hung up by some paperwork.
Heritage, but that's all right.
Ernie cares.
Okay, so we'll continue until November 6th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we are moving into the public meeting, minor modifications. We have Rothbard at 3 Brooks Farm Road.
Sometimes they sell them for like $1. I'm serious.
Yeah, that one's too big to move.
The cost of the movie is in the hundreds of thousands, but
Not possible.
We're concerned about disposable bags at the grocery store. We throw away houses.
Yeah.
You know?
Take care of the straws,
For the applicant again, Art Gasparo, we're seeking a minor modification to this approval for work within the buffer zone to a small isolated vegetated wetland. And this is residential development that you've already approved. The structure is rotated slightly from the approved location to get away from, or to provide separation distance to the adjacent slope and property. It still remains all structural elements outside of the 50-foot buffer zone, so it's just a slightly altered position. There is a extreme grade change that occurs between the abutting property and this property. And so in order to retain that soil, we're proposing to install steel sheeting along the property line that would essentially then become a retaining wall that would face it with something. It would be a few feet high. And that would be in your jurisdiction. So we wanted to be sure that it was approved, but we've stopped it outside of the 50-foot buffer zone. So that wall would be, and then it would go back to the natural grades that occur there. And then the other aspect of this is to have some restoration plantings for the resource area itself. The adjacent property you've approved work on, and that's occurred. And so they asked, saw this as beneficial, and we thought this would be considered beneficial to essentially do the same thing, the same protocols And so that's what's shown on the landscape plan. And we've maintained the same limit of work essentially at the 38-foot line so that you get your 50% once the project's done of undisturbed buffer.
Thank you.
So just to throw in on this, we did a lot of inspections on this. They're the contractor that did the work for the abutter in that wetland area kind of kept us in touch with what was going on, and they've done an exceptional job getting everything out without a lot of disturbance, and they had begun planting the same day they finished the final removal from the one site. So they were pretty quick and expedient about it, and I think they've done a really nice job with the plants and had everything out. And, took a lot of care to make sure the access was good, and then, I mean, I think it speaks a lot that they did well enough that the abutter came in to say, hey, it looks so nice and you guys are doing such a great job. I think it makes sense for us, especially because we had mentioned it during the permitting for the other one. That would be nice if they did.
There was a disturbed resource area, had been altered and mowed and over the years, not by necessarily this owner, and so it's really a restoration project.
The steel sheeting, how deep does that go, and how high does it go off the soil?
That'll have to be designed.
Okay.
I put a note on there, you know, the exact details of that, but I have spot elevations on there, and so, you know, the top somewhere up around probably 32, 33, and your finished grade around 27, so 5-6 feet. You probably would slope some of that up and have to put a fence across the top, you know, of some sort for that height, but somewhere along that probably, I would think a 5-foot exposure probably. And in terms of depth, they'll probably be 16-foot sheets, but I'm not positive on that. You know, that'll have to depend on the thickness of the gauge steel versus the length, because it's got to be cantilevered.
Where's the groundwater? What height is the groundwater? Will the pilings go down into groundwater?
It would, yes. And again, it's just a steel. It is a steel sheet that would be into groundwater. Yes.
And what's the length?
We didn't exactly design the length of the wall. It would be in your
pilings, the wall of pilings.
In your jurisdiction. It would be essentially 49 feet, because it would run from the 51, say, to the 100-foot buffer zone. And then it keeps going a little bit further, but in the jurisdiction, I would say it's a 49-foot long wall.
What's the useful life of a steel plate like that?
Oh,
You know?
I would say decades.
Or 10 if they're
Yeah.
coated. There's so many
Yeah.
variables.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depends on the steel makeup. There's a lot.
How far into groundwater is this going to go?
I didn't really investigate that without knowing the length. It would be into the groundwater, though, to support that weight, you know. So what
Yeah, the
it's got to
cantilever,
cantilever
so
it, right?
the 2/3
But
roughly.
it's a fairly short section overall.
Doesn't groundwater flow down towards Lily Pond there?
I'm not
I'm
sure.
not comfortable with okaying this until we actually see more about what's being proposed, the actual depth and penetration to groundwater. We talk about groundwater and other applications and, you know, how it interferes with the flow. So this seems rather cavalier to call it a minor modification.
Okay. I think it probably would be good information to have on record, certainly. Any other thoughts from the commission?
What had been the earlier plan for there, or was this it, or was it not realized that a steel sheeting would have to go in? Just kind of how did we wind up there?
Right. They I don't think that the site design had been developed to a point that they until we got the permits, and then a contractor was hired who said, to basically the architect and landscaper that what you drew doesn't really, would be challenging given. And on the upper side, there's a swimming pool. That's the other part to take into account on the neighboring property. So we've got a weight issue or just concerns up in that's highly developed. That's all of your that's that whole Manila, Gingy Lane subdivision, right? So that's what we're sort of have happening at the top of the slope.
Any other thoughts or questions? Is it possible to provide us more detail on that?
I can work on that, yes.
Well,
If that's what the commission wants.
it looks like it is.
So, continuance until the 6th, please.
Okay, so we will hear this again on November 6th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then we're moving on to 99 Squam Road LLC at 99 Squam Road.
Again, Art Gasparo, before you with a minor modification for some alterations to project within the buffer zone, both to a small isolated vegetated wetland and a coastal dune. We're on the east side of Squam Road at number 99 Squam, and the order of conditions allowed for landscaping and renovations to the structure. And what we would like to do is to modify the driveway. We're taking out a large portion of the driveway that runs through the property and proposing to keep it closer to the road. And that would be within the 50-foot buffer zone, not within the 25. We've done the analysis to also maintain the 50% buffer zone, 50% of the area between the 25 and the 50. It's essentially going to be just heavily planted. We've shown where the lawn area would be in that small area here, and then what's existing. They're proposing to expand the lawn on the water side of the house, again, well outside of the 25-foot buffer zone. And also proposed is a generator and a propane tank between the 50-foot and 100-foot buffer zone. I believe this is all within the scope of the approved project.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Okay. Any questions from the public? Jeff, do we have everything to accept this minor mod? Is there a motion to accept the minor mod?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, by voice vote, Ian?
Yes.
Arisman, yes.
LaFleur, aye.
Engelborg, aye.
Phillips, aye.
Steinauer, aye.
Okay, that minor mod passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we could take a quick pause. I'll let you guys come up and say what you wanted to say.
We just wanted to recognize that this is Mr. Steinauer's last meeting, and we wanted to say thank you for your many years of service on the Conservation Commission.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, and good luck in your retirement.
Shake your hand. We gotta get back downstairs.
For
once
nice
that
you guys
let's go.
coming up.
So-
Yeah, stuff to do.
So just to add into this,
Really appreciate it.
Ernie, while they're shaking hands and going, we've had a lot of commissioners come and go, and this is the first time we've ever had the select board come up to send somebody off. So I think that speaks volumes to the amount of effort and time you've put in. So
That's awesome.
thank you guys for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming for you, Jeff, be careful.
I'm not on the board.
Where you going? Yeah, where you going?
I'm not going. That's ask Matt where I'm going.
Yeah, if they're coming for you.
Check the schedule downstairs.
You better see if
Better
you're,
make sure my paycheck's
maybe,
still on the paper.
maybe a pink slips in
Maybe
there.
maybe a tweet's coming out tomorrow.
A little pink
Well,
slip in
that
your
was
paycheck.
nice.
No,
We're gonna
it's
miss you, Ernie.
Severely and sincerely.
Yes.
They've been texting me for like 20 minutes. They're like, "We're at a good spot to take a break. Can we come up? Can we come up?" I'm like, "We're close. We're close."
Almost. All right, so we're gonna move on to certificates of compliance. And we're gonna start with Pocomo Neighbors at 47, 53, 55, 57, 61, 63, 67, and 69 Pocomo Road.
Yes. So normally I do these, but I felt like for this project, it would be better to come from the project team. It's more involved than the project.
Thank you for the applicant, Art Gasparo, and
Jay Button from Wilkinson.
from Wilkinson. So we've been working cooperatively, the Wilkinson team and myself from the get-go on this project, and I think it's been fairly successful, very successful, and we've been doing all of the required monitoring. The report that I submitted for a request for a certificate of compliance was also a bit of a monitoring update as well. We did a new survey, and we had the storms from last week. I went right out after that. I also went out this past Sunday just because there was that second blow, and which isn't included, but I can report to you that there's no exposure of the rolls. Essentially, most of that second storm was west southwest, and in this put this shoreline in the lead primarily. So the project is holding up well. We have a committed set of owners who are been maintaining the contracts, and every time we've come to them with something that's come up, as I see it, done the right thing, and I expect that's there'll be ongoing conditions if you decide to issue the certificate, which they've all been made aware of, that this isn't just done, no such thing really, and so there's an ongoing commitment to the sand cover and the reporting that has to happen here. But again, the vegetation growth on the upper portions of the bank is going well. There was a lot of discussion when we did this permitting in terms of the composition of the beach and the cobble, and so I try to take pictures and keep an eye to it. And I don't think the volume of sand that we add is such that it doesn't get acted on so much and so much gone that it's covering anything. And I think that we've got the right amount, at least for the few years so far that we've been doing this. And so the only aspect I think of the project to have a quick discussion on is that as has been reported to you in the past, 2 of the property owners didn't do the installation, and so however that has to be handled in the paperwork, so that we do have to, this has been recorded against all of the titles, so the certificate of compliance I believe has to reflect those 2 properties, 55 and 57, that didn't go forward with that installation. The one other thing that we are going to do as part of our regular maintenance is the straw wattles across the path where the storm water, as we've talked about. I noticed on my last site visit they've kind of been compact, they're biodegradable, and they just have started to compact. So we just received authorization from the owners for Wilkinson to replace those. Most of them are out of your jurisdiction anyway. They're just kind of check dams that go up that trail, up the access path where the water is accumulating and gaining velocity, and then essentially washing out, as we've discussed with one of the abutters as a commission and collectively. And we're trying to absolutely be responsive to his concerns as well. And I think it's important to all of the applicants out there that they maintain a friendly Nantucket kind of neighborly situation. But those a little bit more, I think, than I normally would say for a certificate of compliance, but I think it's a little bit more of a project than we normally would see. And I'd be happy to take questions or concerns. And like I say, Wilkinson remains on board with the maintenance.
My only question, now that the vegetation is established, are the irrigation heads going to be removed?
I think we could probably take care of those. I mean, other than planting areas, we don't.
There shouldn't be any need on
Yeah.
the top of the bank for there to be any more irrigation at
Sure.
this point.
Awesome, that would be great, because I know usually we try and have those be temporary.
Yep. I can relay that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That's my only thought or concern.
That's about it for me. It looks very nice up there.
Yeah, looks good.
Ian, do you have any thoughts on this one?
No, I'm really pleased the way that it's being handled. So, I hope it continues to be successful going forward.
Thank you.
Jeff, what are your thoughts for ongoing conditions?
All right, there are a lot of them. I'm happy to read them, but just for the record, I'll put all of the numbers in first. So we're recommending 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 25, 26, 27, 28, and then 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. So just to, I will paraphrase for all of them, and I'll run through what we thought they would go forward. So 17 is for the storm reporting, and then the annual reporting to continue. 18 are the photographs, which they're very good about putting. 19 is not in there. 20 is that the applicant's responsible for retrieving all materials that get free. 21 is that monitoring report showing adverse impact to surrounding properties, that they come before the commission, so that still would go forward. 22 is the, in case it gets removed, it's a condition that requires reporting after its removal. I don't think it's getting removed or proposed for them, but just to keep it on just in case. 23 is the nourishment requirement and the volumes that they've provided. 25 is for travel on the beach with an overseason and sign off from the Natural Resources Office. 26 is that no machine or materials be stored on the beach. 27 is for the yearly check-in on the project, and since they're going to be putting stuff in, they can go forward. 28 is that the core logs be kept in good repair, and then they provide notice for repairing them. 29, and 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33 are the requirements to maintain the plantings at a healthy level. Let's summarize all those together. We've all read those conditions about 8 million. So, but those are all of the ones that we're recommending go forward. And I think they've indicated that their plan to still operate beneath those conditions. So.
Okay. Is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance with conditions 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33 ongoing? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, by voice vote, Ian?
Yes, thank you for reading them out, Jeff.
No problem.
Arisman, aye.
LaFleur, aye.
Engelborg, aye.
Phillips, aye.
Steinauer, aye.
Okay, so that certificate's issued unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Moving on to Native Breeze LLC at 4 North Beach Street.
So this is the house at, excuse me, at 4 North Beach Street. This was for originally the elevating and renovation of the structure, and then the construction of an addition, deck, and driveway on the structure at 4 North Beach Street. That project was done in compliance. That was a structure that was pre-elevated, so there was no grading work or anything done in conjunction with the project. And we would recommend that that certificate of compliance could be issued
Okay.
without any need for ongoing conditions.
Move to issue.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. By voice vote, Ian?
Yes.
Arisman, aye.
LaFleur, aye.
Engelborg, aye.
Phillips, aye.
Steinauer, aye.
Okay, that carries unanimously. And then on to Bushel trustees at 287 Hummock Pond Road.
So I didn't get listed correctly on the agenda. This is a reissue. We have issued the certificate of compliance before, but it did not make it to the registry of deeds. Now it's going to prove, and they're asking that it be reissued to close out that permit. But it's still in compliance. That makes a difference.
Motion to reissue.
Second.
Okay, Ian,
Aye.
Airсman, aye.
LaFleur, aye.
Engelborg, aye.
Phillips, aye.
Steinauer, aye.
Top of mind.
Okay, so that reissue is reissued unanimously. Moving into orders of conditions.
Sorry.
Oh, the bread and steak.
Well, we have
What?
too many this time.
Paper clips.
No, there weren't.
I prefer to use the staple with stapler, but that gets above like 4 sheets. It won't staple with staple. Has a capacity.
Okay, so
So let's
at
limit
this
these
point,
to
I'm
4
going to
sheets.
bow out, and Ernie, thank you. Thank you for everything. It's been an honor and a pleasure serving with you, and I've learned an awful lot. So take care.
Thanks, Ian.
Yeah. Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye,
Ian.
Ian.
Bye, Ian.
All right, so at 7:16, Ian got off the phone, so you guys don't have to roll call vote anymore. That's one of us. So I just wanted to say that to make sure that
Small victories.
our minutes taker got that.
Okay, so our first order of condition is for Gisela Leinhardt at 11 Jonathan Way.
So this was when we closed last time. This was the composting toilets. I would go through the whole better description of the project, but I think that's the only part people probably remember is the composting toilets. So, right. But it was also for a house and a drop there. Of course.
Can I ask for gray water samples?
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
And there's a typo in 19.
Probably not some typos.
Yeah, I think we asked for samples from the site and then reference to existing standards or metrics that.
Sure, so we can do 21, a yearly sample of the gray water shall be taken from the tank. And analyzed for its nutrient levels of the report comparing it existing. You want to just take existing surface water samples, or
Yeah, standards or samples.
and then the type one activity said the applicant shall file a yearly report demonstrating proper operation of the septic system. Oh, you know, actually, I want to, on that 21, just thinking about it, I think we wanted to actually read, a yearly sample of the gray water shall be taken during the summer months. I don't want someone to go out and bottle it.
It's not in use.
January. Yeah, especially if it's just a seasonal resident, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pumped it, be like, hey,
No
it's really
nutrients
good.
here.
There's nothing.
Haven't flushed a toilet in months. there a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so that passes unanimously.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hey,
That's a really big file for.
Yeah.
A lot of information.
So many
Oh, God.
pages.
Never do that again, Jeff.
you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about it.
I wouldn't want you to do it to you guys either, though.
Don't worry, we'll find Jeremy. I'll still track you down. We'll send it
Right.
to you.
Read this. We need a review.
We'll start using you for like third-party reviews.
Yeah.
Expert witness.
Expert.
Expert reviewer.
Okay, so we're moving on to Salon Elves LLC at 3 Wires Way, Lot A.
That could properly.
Yeah, these are different orders. The projects
Right,
are a
they're
little bit
different.
That's the thing to think of. So lot A is the smaller interior lot. It's the, not the L-shaped one. It's the middle.
Right, and the driveway goes around it.
Goes past it, correct. So that being said, I can look at the conditions for that.
Even though the pool is out of jurisdiction, do we have to specify how that's drained? That there won't be a hose just running down to jurisdiction to dump that, since that's the most secretive spot to do it?
We could just say no pool draining in our jurisdiction. We don't have to specify which pool it's from.
I mean, you could put it 19, just so you're not focused on that. You could put a condition that all water to be discharged on site is to be out of the commission's jurisdiction, or any or all water, because that way you're picking up other things that maybe don't. So if it's for construction and dewatering, they can put it somewhere else. If it's for the pool in the future, they're covered. So you'd say 19. And water discharged. Or actually, I think you just put no water discharge is allowed within commission jurisdiction. I think that's the second one up.
That's a lot A and B.
No, Lot B has a different order of conditions. Lot B has a few more components that aren't on Lot A.
Can I just ask a question? That wouldn't include irrigation, right? You're just talking about construction or other.
Yeah, construction. The irrigation, I don't particularly separate from those.
But did we? Oh, it's not on this lot. It's the other lot that's within the buffer.
Correct. Well, we can do A first, then we can do B separately. Questions?
Move to issue as amended on Lot A.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, carried carries unanimously. And moving on to Salon Elves LLC, 3 Wires Way, Lot B.
Alright, so this one had some of the invasive species protocols, the things that are there, so I included our normal invasive species stuff for herbicide and plant material, that's some photo monitoring, and then the 50% regrowth of native species, within there too, and then the cultivars, and then I guess we would stand that same condition 25, that no water discharge allowed within the commission jurisdiction, and there as well.
Is there a motion on this one?
Move to issue as amended.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Can we amend anything on here? It's the same, right?
There was an amendment about the discharge.
Yeah, we added that condition.
Oh, we added to this one also? I missed it. Okay, good.
So we're moving on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 158 Orange Street. I guess the only thing for this one, we want to add a condition about no cultivars or native species within the buffers.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we could put that, no cultivars are allowed within the, we've been typically doing within the 50. Well, no, it was kind of stumped on conditions for it, pretty straightforward. That's not a hard time. So remember there being 2 houses going inside.
Yeah, my friend used to live there.
My boss used to.
Yeah,
When I was surveying, yeah, I used to put Mike Batman's house.
when he rented the front house to the Ralph Lauren employees for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Good house to be at.
it's a sweet location.
Yeah, it was a good house.
Yeah.
And now it's open to all of us. Was there a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Moving on to 28 Lily Street, LLC at 28 Lily Street.
I think it's similar. I don't think I'm not
We put in the no fountain grass.
wrong. Oh, that is correct. So if it's all right for you guys for right now, just for me typing it, to remember, because I don't have the file out handy, I will list the condition as no fountain grass, but I'll call out that species by name specifically when I can
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
pull out the plan and
Tennessee
Spell it
does.
correctly. It was actually probably a month ago for the first time I saw it out, like in native vegetation, and I
Yeah.
thought, oh, this is not good.
Yeah, I've seen a few spots, and
Yeah.
it's been way out in the middle of nowhere.
It's funny when you run into like random like privet grass or something.
Oh, yeah.
Out and around.
Privet I'm more used to, I guess.
Yes.
I found grass. Oh.
You're like, I know how you got there.
Now Pennisedum and Miscanthus, both daddies.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Aye. Second.
All in favor?
I want to say second. That's what I was getting at.
Sorry, we got you. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. No, we didn't do Wall Street. So is that it?
That's it.
All right. So moving on to extension requests. Garen at 36 Pocomo Road.
So this, if you guys remember, 36 Pocomo Road was that pretty large scale restoration project that the property transfer for. You have a monitoring report on it later in the agenda, but they have started and are working, and that order is about to expire from its original issuance. So they're asking for the 3 one-year extensions to finish and complete a couple years of monitoring before they close out the order.
Moved to issue the 3 one-year extensions.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. And then moving on to Rochat at 100 Low Beach Road.
Yes, so this project at 100 Loop Beach Road was for, make sure I get it right, there. Was for the installation. Yeah, this wasn't, I was right. This was one for the installation of the pool, deck and patio. And it is something that they have started work on, and they are also seeking their 3 one-year extensions in an effort to finish the project. They're switching orders, so I just want to carry it forward.
Okay, is there a motion to issue 3 one-year extensions?
Motion to issue.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. Oh yikes, we have an emergency request at Sanctity Golf Club, 18 Hoyks Hollow Road.
Leo's here to talk about it. So, turn it over before then. I will pass.
You ready? Okay, Leo Asadorian with Blackwell and Associates. There's a portion of the cabana and a decking that's out there that's in danger of going over the bank. And we actually visited the site yesterday with the director and assistant director and actually a structural engineer, because what we wanted to do was remove the deck that's in danger of going over the bank before it goes down to the coastal beach. And we're going to remove 21 feet of the existing cabana, which is 2 units of the cabana. And the structural engineer is going to draw a plan for the interior to support the building so it could be used during the next season. And discussing the project with the attorney for the club, we're going to follow up with a notice of intent. And the notice of intent will be to basically demolish the rest of the site at some point in time, over phasing over a period of time. I can tell you that I recall going out there almost 30 years ago, and Boys and Girls Club with buildings still seaward there, probably about 150 feet offshore, and it's coming back quite a bit. I think the club's attitude towards the site right now is to take everything back and let the sea do what it's going to do. You know, it's just a difficult situation that they're constantly removing portions of it. The structural engineer's recommendation would be to take this portion of the deck off. It's 15 feet right now from the cabana to the top of the bank, and to remove 21 feet of the first 2 units of the cabana itself, put into helical anchors on each side, and go underneath the footing, because it is a full basement underneath there. And coming back 21 feet, there were actually pilasters as part of the foundation design that would fit perfectly just to keep that thing supported. If you go out there and look at it now, there's actually a bulkhead wall, because part of that cabana has been removed over a period of time. So a wall obviously would have to be built, or the basement would be exposed and dirt would come in. And just to backfill with dirt, and again, let nature take its course eventually until we can demo the rest of the property. On the north end, there's a portion of deck right now that we noticed yesterday that I did notice about a month ago, but after the storm that we had the weekend before last, the deck goes out and extends out over the bank about 2 or 3 feet. It goes nowhere. Anybody walking out there is going to go over. So they were going to extend that fence that runs along the top of the bank and just remove that portion of the deck that's hanging over the bank and put the fence in place so nobody can go over the edge. So it's a public safety issue, and it's also an issue for them to be able to operate this coming summer. So in essence, we're coming back 36 feet from the top of the bank. And we also have to move the ADA ramp, but that will be in the notice that we follow up with. And looking at it yesterday, the structural engineer thought that we could just literally take the ADA ramp and just slide it back and extend it a little bit, because there's a grade change between the 2 parking lots out there. The seaward or the eastern parking lot is no longer going to be able to use. It's very dangerous for anybody to go in there, and if you're not paying attention, step on the gas, you could go over the bank. So they're going to be blocking that off totally. So that's it. We just need an emergency permit right now to remove this before the structure ends up on the beach, and then we'll follow up with a notice of intent.
Do you have any photos of this imminent danger that you could supply? Any plans, anything like that?
Well, no plans right now, because obviously we're
Scrambling.
Yeah.
Scrambling, trying to get
The photos are fine.
Yeah. And it's actually, this was taken on the 12th of September, but in the last month, the last 5 weeks, it's actually come back. And what we noticed was the roof runoff coming on top of the deck that's northerly, on the northerly side of that. And what's happening is it's going through the decking and washing the bank out. So they were just going to, and coming back to 21 feet, there's a downspout, is just put PVC pipe and let it go out onto the lawn so it's not going, because right now the water's just hitting that deck and going underneath the deck and washing the bank out.
All right, so Jeff, do we need a motion to issue the emergency cert?
Yes. Of emergency, yes, the emergency certification. Yes, and that would allow them to do the work that they described.
Okay.
But that's it. Doesn't allow them to do
Right,
other
anything
things.
else.
They're allowed to abate the emergency the way they're describing, but they can't like put in the pool or whatever.
I think that it's the club's intention to ban the site. We're actually looking for alternatives, so
Yeah. And then
maybe in
there's-
a couple hundred years they'll end up with another beach club, but right now it
Somewhere else.
definitely needs to go somewhere else.
Is there a motion to issue the emergency certificate?
So moved.
Is there a second? One of you?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. We all need to sign this.
Yep.
Yeah,
I know
thank
it
you.
has that little fancy line.
Yeah, it's a little funny.
So that blanket, so if it's a real emergency, we're not having a meeting, we have to look out that they dropped it off. But you as chair are authorized to sign those independently, or I as the conservation agent, but then we have to get it ratified by the board. So,
And we'll definitely give the commission staff, the structural engineers recommendations to support that building, so it could be used.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
It's designed for those ones. I think I issued an emergency at once at 9 PM, once for broken sewer.
Yeah.
So
Needed to be done.
Thanks, Bill. Good to see you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to other business, approval of minutes for October 9th. Did anyone see anything in the minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Monitoring reports, Garen at 36 Pocomo Road.
So we kind of talked about it already with the extension, but it's
Okay. Any thoughts on the monitoring report? Are we good? Okay. Reports, crack.
I could not make it to the last meeting.
Okay. CPC.
We reviewed all 15 applications and voted on distribution of monies, and we'll have a report out for next week on where everything's going to go.
Okay.
But very positive.
A lot of paper reading for you, right?
There's actually a lot of history, which was kind of fun about the buildings and just the renovation and why they started and everything. It was fun under a great group of people.
NP and EDC.
A meeting was canceled because Mike Burns was off island.
All right. There's no mosquito control. So commissioners' comments. I know.
If I might.
Nope. Leave.
Nope, I'm done.
He's cut off.
Just cut off. Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Emily for doggedly encouraging me to apply. I mean, she had my arm behind my back, and my shoulder's still sore from that. But she convinced me finally to. And
when was that? Do you know?
It was so long ago, I can't remember.
You've been attending Concom almost as long as I have. Do you remember, Jeff, when
Ernie came onto the board in 2005.
Yeah.
So not for nothing, but as a piece of history, that there are still 3 of us that are still left that were actively in front of the commission in some capacity.
Yeah.
Art, Emily, and I are still here, still going.
Boy.
I was a little nervous to take the seat next to him, but not gonna lie.
Oh,
But
geez.
you've been a big help. No, I thank you so much for everything. So,
Yeah.
really been an invaluable wealth of information. Thank you.
It's all lies.
You had us all.
I'm making up as I go.
Smoke show was
Joe,
good. You
say
had us all
this.
fooled. I learned a lot from you too, Ernie. Also, just tremendous.
Well, one thing
help
I
for me.
certainly learned an awful lot. I never thought I'd know so much about coastal armoring as I know now. Or lawn care from being on the fertilizer committee. Sheesh.
I mean, I think the consistency and just your experience and background has just been completely invaluable to the commission for the last 15 years. It's been really great to have you up there.
Well, I've been on a whole slew of great commissions with great people, so it's been really rewarding and enjoyable to do this. And I've met people I never would have known before, which is sort of a side benefit. And I want to thank Jeff, Joe, Dirk, and Peggy for their for the work behind the scenes. So much work goes into this for our few-hour meeting every week, and their guidance, their best and great guidance, and just their knowledge of the regs and the processes and things. It's great to have that kind of guidance. And the professionals that come before us I've seen the change from when we used to have to pore over these applications and redesign projects and get them in the buffer zones and et cetera. Now, most of our projects come in, if not completely within within compliance without waivers, generally, we can work, we work with people to, we saw it happen a couple times tonight where we work with people to bring projects in, and because of that, we rarely deny projects, so it's been great to work with the people that come before us. So I really feel fortunate to have had this experience.
I think that will be your legacy of shifting the projects to be better from the applicants. And I know within the commission, but also just in general on Nantucket for conservation science, you've played a huge role. So thank you.
Thanks.
And Ernie, one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't try and join this commission earlier to have been exposed to more of it, because your history and your knowledge, both professional and practical, it's terrific. And thank you so much for being there. And I learned a lot in just these few months sitting next to you. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Maybe we'll call on you to be a consultant.
Yeah.
Oh, I've already said
Yeah.
Already said that earlier.
I said, really, there should be,
I'll set up a billing structure.
Yeah, you can, you can stop doing voluntary work and start doing
extra
paid
money
work.
in retirement.
Yeah, I did this for free for
gotta
how
be
many
interested.
years, I might as well.
Nebraska prices, though.
They're, much less than,
Yeah.
you're right there, much less than Nantucket price.
Ashley's just proven she can do the dialing really well, so you
I'm
can
really,
call from anywhere.
exactly. You can call in, expert witness. I'm really gonna miss your insight, though, Ernie. It's just a tremendous help to all of us, and your dedication to the Conservation Commission and the wetlands regs for so long. It's just, the town owes you so much. Really. Yeah.
Thanks for calling me Ernie and not Mr. Steinauer. Geez. I wanted to say-
Dr. Steinauer.
Dr.
Steinauer. Yeah.
All right. Any other commissioners' comments?
Happy birthday, Joe.
Yes, today is Joanne's.
Joe's birthday.
Happy birthday.
I was noticing she's.
Was
She
wondering-
gave her a day off. That was very kind.
Was wondering if you were talking about yourself
she
or
was,
something.
She took the last 5 days off. It was in all day today when we took her to lunch, and then she asked Joel and she's like, "My friends are gonna take me out to dinner. Can I miss the meeting?" I was like, "Yeah, it's your 40th." Come out. It's like, don't come hang out with us. But Joe did want to pass on that. Her best wishes to Ernie too. I'll wait for my report.
Oh, and I couldn't not attend your last commission meeting, but I also made you your favorite cookies.
Look at his eyes lit up.
Look at him.
Are we allowed to have
Showing us
those?
all up.
Are we allowed to have those in the police station?
Only Bernie
These are
shares.
great.
Ernie, before you came, Ernie said he only wanted presents that could be eaten.
He did say
Nothing
that.
that had to be moved.
What are said cookies?
These look,
They're called Anzac biscuits. It's like oats and coconut and honey and butter.
Are they peanut cookies?
There's no nuts.
Okay, thanks.
That's when I stepped down. It's my
Noted. You put in a good 10 years, Joe, and you'll earn yourself some cookies.
Of 15.
Yeah.
The bar is set. Ernie has.
I think I'm at 5 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, you actually and Dave are the older statesmen at this point.
I know. It's gonna be 6 years in June.
And Ian.
Insanity.
Ian had a break.
Ian had a break, yeah. He came back in after Ashley.
Yeah. All right. Administrator staff reports.
All right. I promise I'll get back to everyone being happy. But I mentioned it earlier in the meeting. We don't have to discuss this tonight, but I wanted everyone to get a copy of the letter that I sent to SPPF about the quarterly reporting. So take it, read it. We'll put it on the agenda for the 6th. And then we don't have to talk about it anymore tonight, unless people really, really want to. But it essentially is saying that we're triggering condition 35, that you have to appear in front of the commission to explain why you did file some reports. So
Can frame this, Ernie, as your last enforcement letter.
it's kind of the gist. I apologize for taking so long, but as you guys know, I wrote it and then sent it to George, and we made a couple of little revisions and trying to make sure everything is correct. But that being said, in my comment, since I didn't get commissioner comments, I actually will say I am probably sitting here today because of her. So when the town was restructuring, before there was a natural resources department, and I was mercifully saddled with kind of keeping tabs on lifeguards for the marine department in my role as beach manager, and Dirk left the town. Lydia asked me about
You used to permit stuff in front of the commission. Do you think you could help them out and kind of do Dirk's job? And I said, do I get to get rid of the lifeguards? And she said, yes. I said, absolutely. I certainly can. But one of the things that made that choice for me a little bit easier was Ernie had been chair for probably 3 or 4 years at that point, and then continued to be chair for another 3 or 4 years. And without Ernie in that role, it would have been 1,000 times more difficult. So I will always appreciate the fact that I didn't have to come in and, worry about meetings and process and how things were running, because Ernie was already had everything in, and it made my job really easy just to come in and sit here and fill out paperwork and get stuff ready for you guys to do and not have to worry about what was going on. So it was there, and everything's kind of gone from there. So without Ernie, we would maybe still be in a little bit of the dark ages for what's there. I mean, you were chair for what, 8 years? It's got to be pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, you took over right from Archie.
Oh, no.
There was Michael.
And Ginger.
Yeah, you
and
took over
Clark.
from Ginger.
Yeah. Clark was there for a short while, but not very long.
And then had that stretch, but then you were probably till just 3 years ago. Andy picked up for a couple of years. I just look at that. I mean, Andy was chair for like 2 years and had to quit. Couldn't do it anymore. That proves your longevity.
Yeah.
And now Ashley has been saddled with it too. So
You're doing a great job.
So thank you. I mean, I honestly think that for the last 10 or 15 years that a lot of us that are in this room have been here. I mean, you've really been the face of the commission, and I think you're the real standard bearer for what the expectations for people that come here have to meet, have to provide, and really provided. I mean, I remember when you got on, and we'd sit at work and say, "Hey, here's the learning guy that got on. Like, he's got a doctorate." And everyone was just like, "Oh, the Audubon guy," and it was a total. It was a lot different from what it was, and I really feel like you were the first person that transitioned the board from being a lot of citizens that were interested, which is great, to really providing a lot of real credibility and and bringing kind of the science community into it as well. And I think the reason that we've had people like Jen and Sarah and Ashley and Seth is because you open the door for them to come back in, and I think that's a really great addition, and then to be able to supplement with a really wide variety of skills around has been awesome. So
that's been what's really amazing, is the scope of people we get on the commission, from all walks of life, but we all come together and work for the same goal, which is, I think, been a really great experience.
And honestly, having permitted in front of a lot of boards, I won't put our own spot because it goes to permit, a board that's always been very simple and professional and well-run, and not a lot of personal axes or issues and things that you hear about, not just on Nantucket, but in other commissions places, that it's never been that way, where you have some of the more highly charged and controversial projects in the Commonwealth, that it's never gotten to a point where it shouldn't have been, and most of that was under your watch. So
it's got to be civil, or it's not fun anymore.
You still have fun. But that's it for me. I don't have anything else. We'll talk about all these other things on the 6th, when there's just sadly 6 of us.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to throw in?
Somebody
Mark,
good.
Emily? RJ's still new. We barely crossed paths.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful for a few months, right? We're gonna miss you.
RJ, you're required to bring cookies like this too.
I do want those back.
Yeah, pass them back.
They're gone.
No,
They're
that's
gone.
not
They're
true.
gone home with Jeff.
I don't know what happened, is they came down, there were like 6 when I got them.
Well, while you're down
So you
here.
notice I won't even pen. Look at that.
Yeah, there
Presents.
you go.
Oh, it's passing of the torch.
Oh, my goodness.
It's still the iPad too.
So-
All 16 gigabytes of it.
I think our motion to adjourn needs to come from.
I would appreciate that, yeah. We ready? Okay, move to adjourn.
I don't think we need a second.
No one in a second.
Unanimous.
Wait, you know what? If
Unanimous.
You never adjourn, he actually never gets.
Right, that's what
Oh,
I
I
said.
can't. Oh, wait a minute.
Lifetime on the board.
Sucker. And he made the motion, so now he's stuck.
See you on the
Totally
6th.
Don't
I'll
do
just
that to him.
misbehave and get kicked off.
All right, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.